All right, you are now being recorded. So I'll just repeat what I just said, that in some ways I think it would be better to have titled this class Jewish Views on Optimism and Hope, because I think optimism and hope are very closely tied together. So can I have a volunteer who would like to read us this first quote from Avot, de-Rabbi Natan?
I can.
Great. Thanks, Kate.
What were Rabbi Akiva's
Mhm.
beginnings? It is said, up to the age, had not studied a thing. One time while standing by the little
Can you guys
box.
not see it?
I can move the box.
Okay.
One time while standing by the mouth of a well in Lydda, he inquired who hollowed out this stone, and was told it was water falling upon it constantly, day after day. They said, Akiva, haven't you read that water wears away stone? Job 14:19. At that, Rabbi Akiva asked himself all the more so, is my mind harder than this stone? He immediately returned to study the Torah, and he and his son sat with the children's teacher. The teacher wrote down Aleph and Bet for him. He went on learning until he had learned all 5 books of Moses.
So Rabbi Akiva, who is one of the greatest rabbis of all time, knew nothing, was totally illiterate until age 40. And it was then where he started to learn, mostly with the encouragement of his wife. And they sacrificed a lot for him to be able to learn. But the fact that he had the optimism to be able to start from the very beginning, to sit down with his own child, just to be able to start learning. And this is very modest. It says he went to learn the 5 books of Moses, but he became one of the greatest scholars of all times. But if he had not had the optimism to start, right, to take that first step and sit down and learn, we would not have a lot of the great sources that we have from him today. Can you think of anything happening in the world today that is similar to that, where people are having the optimism to even get started in the face of the pandemic?
Start studying or just doing something in general?
Anything.
I'm thinking about more in the secular world with my kids, is this transition from teaching from a traditional way and trying to figure out how to pivot and teach online, however that is. And, whereas like a school of teachers might be a different, have different comfort levels with pivoting in that direction and taking that step.
For sure. Taking the risks, right? We don't know exactly how everything's going to work right away. We're taking the risks. Other examples? I think there are a lot in the medical field, right? The people who are trying to figure out how to make the tests, the antibody tests and the vaccines and the different treatments, and willing to take steps, even if they aren't sure that they're going to work, to try and figure out how to respond to this. I think the stuff where they're doing the tracking of who's been where and who's connected to who with the cell phones, I think that's another example. I think there are thousands of examples of people who are, even the people who are making masks in their own home, right? That know how to sew or just learning how to sew, who are, well, I can't take care of masks for the whole world, but I can make 50 of them and give them to people here locally. I think all those steps are so important and help keep us optimistic, help us from feeling powerless. All right, next one is also about Rabbi Akiva, and I had not read this one before and I really liked it. Jen, you want to read this one from Rabbi Meir Soloveichik?
I'm taking myself off of mute, but my 3 children are starting to wake up, so
okay.
There's my disclaimer.
Okay.
Akiva is essentially an Aramaic variant of Yaakov, or Jacob. Like Akiva, the patriarch Jacob is depicted as having a remarkable capacity to persevere, mainly by working for his deceitful uncle Laban for 14 years in order to earn the right to marry his beloved Rachel. Moreover, the names Jacob and Akiva both derive from the word ekev, or heel. As my father, Rabbi Eliyahu Soloveichik, once pointed out, the heel is the lowest portion of the body, yet at the same time, it is the first part of the body used to take a step forward. In other words, it is precisely one's initial downfall that can ultimately emerge as a key to progress.
I thought this was really cool. Do you guys like this? You know, the idea that sometimes it takes bad things happening to lead to really creative things, right? A few years back in education, they started talking about fail as an acronym for first attempt in learning, right? That you have to be willing to fail and to try something that doesn't work in order to get to what works, right? Think about the Wright brothers and all the attempts at flying they made that didn't work before they finally figured it out. So this idea that going to this lowest point and being willing to persevere is what leads us to progress, I think is, at least to me, is so helpful right now, right? This is a low point. This is not a good point in world events, world history, but maybe it can be the first step to really good things later on. Yeah. What are some of the good things that maybe could come out of this once the pandemic is done?
Renewed relationships. Sometimes, you know, people have been so busy that they haven't been spending a lot of time together, but now they're forced to. So it might help to build relationships.
For sure. I think that we are going to appreciate our relationships on a level we never have before. Other ideas?
Appreciating kind of everything that we took for granted before this that we're now cut off from, just music in the park, you know, like appetizers at a restaurant, any of that stuff. I think we're all going to be a lot more grateful for, at least for a while. Hopefully it lasts. But
after a lot of hours on Zoom yesterday, my youngest and I went for a walk around the block. I don't know if I've ever been so appreciative of a walk around the block. It just getting out of the house and stretching my legs and being with him and the birds chirping and the sun shining. I was so grateful for it. So I think you're right. Everyday things we'll appreciate more.
Even medical advances, you know, I seem to think while they're trying to invent this new vaccine, you know, they'll be stumbling upon other things too in the medical world.
Yeah. And I think appreciation of healthcare workers. I think that our appreciation of healthcare workers is going to increase like it did for first responders after 9/11. Like somehow their work is going to be much more appreciated by people. Like all those things are true. And the other thing I'm seeing, I guess through my federation work, is the cooperation between Jewish organizations in Milwaukee, which has happened in some ways in the past, but I think it's increasing. And so hopefully that will continue on after. All right, let's look at our next one. So this is a commentary on a quote from the Haggadah. So in the Haggadah, there's this quote where they give the quote of what somebody has to go when they donate the first fruits on Shavuot, when they go to the Beit HaMikdash. There's a quote of what they have to say that is mindful of the Haggadah. There's a commentary on that. Judy, do you want to read this one for us?
Sure. The evil inclination causes us to sin through despair. It forces us to see our shortcomings and inadequacies and makes us lose hope of fulfilling God's service. We thereby fall into the net of sinfulness. We need to strengthen ourselves by acknowledging that we are precious to God and that each of must be us contains a piece of the divine.
Okay, so what does that mean to you?
Let's see. I was reading it, but yet I wasn't absorbing it. That's my fault. I'm sorry.
No, this is not a simple one. So the evil inclination, is the idea in Judaism. Like, think about all the cartoons with the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder. The evil inclination is that devil on your shoulder, right? It's the part of us that makes us that leads us to do bad things, right? So how do we sin? We despair. We give up, right? Things seem terrible. We're not going to be able to manage. We feel inadequate. We give up hope, and then we start sinning. And so we strengthen ourselves by recognizing that we are each created in God's image. There's a piece of God in each of us. We can continue. I actually saw this happen to me in a very small way. I was thinking about it this morning. I have a study partner I study with once a week on the phone. And we were talking about how in the time of coronavirus, we have to all cut ourselves some slack, right? Have you guys seen the video of Elmo's dad? It's really funny. I saw it yesterday. It's a video of Elmo's dad giving a message to parents to give themselves a break, and they're doing good enough with all the homeschooling. It's very funny. At any rate, we were talking about how we have to cut ourselves some slack, right? The Passover Seders, if they weren't the same as usual, we have to like be okay with that. And I was telling her I feel that way about praying every day, right? Since I'm not going to the daily service every day, obviously, because the synagogues are closed to remember my mom. So I'm praying at home by myself. And I was saying that I feel like more than ever, I am not concentrating when I'm praying. My head is like distracted in 15,000 directions. I'm thinking about what I'm making for dinner tonight and the work I have to do, and I'm not focused. And she said to me, but you're still doing it. I said, yeah, but I'm not sure what good it's doing because I'm not focused. And she said, if you're still doing it every morning, then there's a chance that sometime while you're praying, you may focus in for a short time. Whereas if you don't pray, you're not going to focus in at all. And today, as I was getting distracted and not focusing in, I thought, okay, I'm going to try to focus on this specific prayer. This minute and a half that I'm on this prayer, I'm going to really try and focus. And I thought, well, this is good. Like, it made me feel better about it. I don't know if I'm expressing this clearly. It made me feel much better about it. Like, I think I was more focused today when I gave myself permission to focus in more on parts, even though I wasn't focusing in at all. Does that make any sense at all?
There actually was a whole, like, about a month ago, all the Daf Yomi was on this for a couple of days. Yeah, I wish I could remember exactly what it was about, but I'll look, because I'll look and find it to send it to you, because it was about how do you say it? Your intention while you pray. So I will, I'll look for it. Yeah, there was a whole discussion around it for a couple of days.
So this keeping hope and not giving up just because things are bad, not to just give up entirely, right? The other example I've heard given before is if you're on a diet and you slip and eat something you shouldn't, right? You have a piece of cake. There are two ways you look at that. You can eat this piece of cake and say, okay, I ate the piece of cake, but now I'm going to go back to eating what I want, what I should be eating. Or there's, oh, I ate a piece of cake, so I can eat anything I want the rest of the day because I blew it anyway, right? That we shouldn't just give up and despair just because we're losing hope. All right, let's go on to the next one. Shannon, you want to read us this one from Pirkei Avot?
Okay. Rabbi Tarfon used to say, "It is not your responsibility to finish the work, but neither are you free to desist from it."
Okay. This is a very famous quote. The beginning of it starts out by saying, the day is short and the work is long. But he goes on to say, but you have to keep working, right? It's not your responsibility to finish it all, but you can't desist from it. I think that we all feel this way right now, right? Between whatever we have to do in the house and family and our workload, which I think for all of us, there's plenty to be doing right now. It could feel overwhelming. We'll never get it all done. We don't have to finish it. We don't have to finish it by ourselves. We don't have to finish it, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't start.
That's true, yeah.
One way to stay optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Who hasn't read yet? Has everybody read? Kate, you want to read this one from Proverbs?
Yep. If there is anxiety in a man's mind, let him quash it and turn it into joy with a good word.
Okay. So this just deals with anxiety in general, but this comment below from Yoma, from the Talmud, explains a debate about the word here that's quash, what the Hebrew word really means. So Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi disputed the meaning of the word quash, yeshena. One of them said yeshena meant he should forcibly push it out of his mind. One who worries should banish his concerns from his thoughts. And one said it means he should tell yeshena others of his concerns, which will lower anxiety. So there's two opposite ways of dealing with anxiety. One is to just push it out of your mind, don't think about it. And the other one is to talk it out. And that the rabbis are disagreeing with how you turn your anxiety into joy. So what do you think? Which do you find more helpful when you're feeling anxious? To either just put it out of your mind or to talk it out?
Talk it out.
Talk it out. Why is that helpful to you, Shannon?
Because otherwise it's like it stays in my head and then, it just keeps rolling around. Like I have to talk to somebody to kind of, like you did with your friend, it's like you have to bounce it off someone else to kind of get a different perspective, because obviously the perspective you have is not good because it's causing you anxiety.
Right.
So that works for me. And breathing.
Breathing is good.
I think for me, it's more situational, depends on, what the source of the anxiety is.
Can you say more about that?
There's certain times where, I'll have an issue and I'll call up a friend and say, can we talk this out and work it out? And, I feel like, but I think I also have to be ready to be able to talk it out. Maybe that's it. Like, maybe it's, where I am with my own anxiety. Do I need to work it out on my own? Am I at a place where I can, talk it out with a friend? So maybe it's not even this or that. Maybe it's a sequence,
When
and
you're
then I kickbacks. So I punch it out.
When you think about it in terms of Corona, I think it's really interesting because I think there are times for all of us that we have to push it away. We have to turn off the news or turn off the Facebook or turn off the, reading online about it, because there's a point at which you just can't keep reading over and over and over again the same analysis of the situation when nobody really knows, right? There's a time at which you just have to push it away so you can sleep at night or you can continue on to focus on things. And then there are other times you need to talk it through and bounce off the ideas with people. So I think that Jen, I think you're right. Sometimes it's readiness and sometimes I think it is situational about what's going on.
That's true.
All right. Judy, you want to read this one from Avot?
Sure. The Gemara quotes additional statements from the book of Ben Sira. Mm-hmm. Do not suffer from tomorrow's trouble. That is, do not worry about problems that might arise in the future, as you do not know what a day will bring. Mm-hmm. I had a mother-in-law like that she was worrying, tomorrow I'm worried about this or that. I thought, just live for today. Mm-hmm. Just take care of today. Tomorrow will take care of itself. It just, what it did was it ruined her Monday worrying about Tuesdays. And sometimes that happens, but all in all, if I could just focus on that day, then I can make it a better day by focusing the good on it rather than worrying about maybe the possible rotten day tomorrow. You kind of close down your options when you start worrying about tomorrow instead of taking care of today. Today could have been better.
I saw a lot of this growing up because my mom was the type to say, what if, and worry about everything. And my dad was always like, don't borrow trouble. We'll cross this bridge when we come to it. We'll handle it when it comes. And my dad's a doctor, and I especially remember this with medical stuff with him. You have to go in, you have to get a test, you're waiting for results. And my mom would be like, what's going to happen? What if this? What if that? And my dad would be like, let's wait till we know. Wait till we know what's going on, and then we can talk about all the issues and worry about it. But to worry about it when we don't know what it's going to be is a big difference. So I think that's really important. We seem to have lost Jen. So I think this is good, really good advice. And especially with today, which not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring, Jen's coming back. I think that this is really important. Hey, Jen, we lost you.
Sorry, when people are starting to wake up and starting to scream, which means I have to shut the Wi-Fi and got kicked off. Okay.
No problem.
I'm back on my phone.
Okay. Shannon, you want to read this one from Shabbat? This is from the Talmud.
Okay. Twilight is a period of uncertainty. It is uncertain whether it consists of both day and night. It is uncertain whether it is completely day, and it is uncertain whether it is completely night.
So it is interesting. It's talking about a certain period of day, right? This is the time when on Friday afternoons or before holidays we light candles, right? This time is called, I'm blanking. It's like gone out of my head. It starts with a shin. It's going to come back to me in a minute. But it's this time that's not quite. It's not day and it's not night. It's the time that's in between, which is why when you light Shabbat candles on Friday afternoon, you light them 18 minutes before candlelight, before sunset, because you're not exactly sure when it comes to nighttime, and so you do it early to be there. But I just thought it was an interesting frame of reference to kind of talk about the time we're in right now, right? Everybody who's planning for the future, I'm doing a lot of planning through Federation, and everybody's planning is talking about what's coming next. And we're uncertain, and everybody's making 3 different plans, 4 different plans. What if we open in a week? What if we open in a month? What if we open in 4 months? What if we open and then we close again? What's it going to be? And this uncertainty is kind of a Shkia. That's the name. I knew it would come to me. Shkia is the name of this time between day and night. And it's a little scary. And if you think about it, when you're driving, and sometimes that's the most dangerous time of day to be driving in terms of visibility, right? Is the twilight between night and dark. It can be really hard to see things. And so I just thought this was an interesting way to think about uncertainty. All right. Jen, you want to read this?
Yeah. Let's bring it on my phone. Sorry. The at the top.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm having trouble seeing it.
It's okay. Kate, you want to
on
read
my
it?
phone?
It's okay.
Can I pass? I'm going to try to get back on.
I got it. Hope in the Lord, be strong and of good courage, and hope in the Lord.
Okay, and then below, this is a commentary on it. Why don't you read that too?
On a similar note, Rabbi Hama, son of Rabbi Hanina, said, a person who prayed and saw that he was not answered should pray again, as it is stated, hope in the Lord, be strong and of good courage, and hope in the Lord. Meaning one should turn to God with hope, and if necessary, turn to God again with hope.
Okay. So we shouldn't give up, right? We need to keep asking God for help, keep praying, not give up on what's going on. If we don't get what we want, we keep praying for it. Now, this doesn't mean, just to be clear, Judaism is not saying that you should pray instead of doing all the right things we should be doing medically. This is not like some of the churches that the ministers are continuing to hold church services because they say the prayer is more important than social distancing. This is not that. Judaism says you need to do all the right things to keep yourself safe. You need to go to the doctor when you're sick. You need to take medicine. You need to stay home and do social distancing. But in addition to that, you pray. Does that make sense? You guys know the story about the guy who was in danger in the flood? It's a very famous story. It's a guy whose house is being flooded, and he climbs up onto his roof. And he's up on the roof, and he's praying to God that God should save him. He's been a righteous man all his life, and that God should save him and not let him drown. And a guy comes along in a rowboat and says to him, hey, jump in. I'm going to save you. I'm going to bring you to safety. And the guy says, no, you don't need to. God's going to save me. So the guy leaves, and another guy comes by with a motorboat an hour later. The water's getting higher, and he says, come on, climb in the motorboat. I'm going to save you. I'll get you dry land. The guy says, no, God's going to save me. I've been a righteous person. God will save me. The motorboat goes on. The water gets up higher. The guy, it's up to his neck. Somebody comes with a helicopter and drops down a ladder and says, come, I'm going to save you. The guy says, no, don't worry. God's going to save me. So the guy drowns, goes up to heaven, and says to God, why didn't you save me? I've been a good man all my life. Why didn't you save me from the flood? And God says, what do you mean? I sent you a rowboat and a motorboat and a helicopter, right? We have to help ourselves first. We have to do the things we need to do to take care of ourselves, but we should also pray, and we should continue to hope that things should become good and that they should change. We shouldn't give up and say, oh, this virus is too much and nothing's going to help. We need to keep saying to God, this is not okay. You need to stop this virus. You need to bring healing. You need to help us figure out, a vaccine, whatever it is we need to be praying for. That as we're striving to cure things and stay at home and do all the right things, we also need to be continuing to turn to God and help. All right. Judy, you want to read this one from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs?
One of the most important distinctions I have learned in the course of, I'm sorry to say, I got to move it over because I don't have the whole. Okay, one of the most important distinctions I have learned in the course of reflection on Jewish history is the difference between optimism and hope. Optimism is the belief that things will get better. Hope is the belief that together we can make things better. Optimism is a passive virtue. Hope is an active one. It takes no courage to be an optimist, but it takes a great deal of courage to have hope. Knowing what we do of our past, no Jew can be an optimist. But Jews have never, despite a history of sometimes awesome suffering, given up hope.
This is when I realized hope needed to be in the title of what we were doing together. I thought this was brilliant. And by the way, do you guys know the name Jonathan Sacks? He was the chief rabbi of Great Britain for a lot of years. He's actually Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. And I think we're going to do a book club of one of his books this summer. He's a very good writer. This idea that we need to be active, that we can't just sit back and say, oh yeah, I know everything's going to be all right, and wait for it to happen. But we need to be doing all of the things that we've been talking about today, the things that whether it's the social distancing or in the medical research, or whether it's the reaching out to other people and being of support to them, we have to be doing, right? We need to be working together, whether it's the work we're doing at Federation or the work we're doing as teachers, or Jen, the work you're doing with Shutaf. We need to be taking action. And that hope will get us through as we're acting. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so Lamentations is in the 3rd section of the Bible, writings. And generally it's very sad stuff. Lamentations was written, it's what we read on Tisha B'Av, which when we remember the destruction of the temple, it's really sad stuff. But I thought this was very actually hopeful. Jen, can you see this now? You want to read?
There, I'm muted. To recall my distress and my misery was wormwood and poison. Whenever I thought of them, I was bowed low. But this do I call to mind, therefore I have hope. The kindness of the Lord has not ended. God's mercies are not spent. They are renewed every morning. Ample is your grace. The Lord is my portion. I say with full heart, therefore will I hope in God.
So there's a prayer in Judaism that you're supposed to say the moment you wake up in the morning, like before you even open your eyes. And the prayer says, thank you, God, King of everything, that has returned my soul to me with great chemla, great grace. Okay. And the idea is that there's a Jewish tradition that your soul is sort of up in heaven and with God during the time you're asleep. And then every morning you wake up and God has returned your soul to you. And you wake up and you thank God for another day. And it's a very powerful message. The idea that every single day when you wake up, you're thankful to have a new day to start, can put a very different spin on looking at life. And so when you focus on all the bad that's in your life, which, I don't know about you guys, when I go to sleep at night, that's when all my worries get biggest. Right? That's when I'm thinking about all the misery and the bad things in the world. When I wake up in the morning, if I can be thankful and start thinking about the good things, then I'm ready to go on with a new day and to have hope. Right, this is a long one. I'm going to read this one because it's really long, and I feel bad that it's a little long. It's several slides long, but I thought it was very powerful and worth looking at. So this is from a rabbi named Sharon Cohn Anisfield. I have come to believe that the most important verse in the entire Megillah is the story of Queen Esther, the story of Purim. The entire Megillah comes when Mordechai sends a message to Esther, urging her to reveal her identity to King Ahasuerus and plead on behalf of the Jewish people. Remarkably, Mordechai's message to Esther hinges on 2 simple words that promise nothing and change everything. Mi yodea. Mordechai says, who knows? Who knows if it wasn't for just such a time that you became queen? Those are the words that set Esther in motion, that inspire her to take action in spite of her own resistance, in spite of the fears about her own fate, in spite of the doubts about her own position. I just went ahead too far, sorry. Of power in the king's court. Who knows? This is hardly the kind of message we look for to motivate us to act with courage in a crisis. We generally look for a message that inspires a little more confidence. This is precisely why you became queen. Your actions will make all the difference. This is why God put you in this position. Nothing happens without a purpose. But the world of Purim, not unlike our world, is a world without guarantees, certainties, and signs from God. It is a world in which we don't know, can't know, the limits or possibilities of our own power. It is a world in which we can't be sure where our actions will lead and whether our efforts will be for naught. It is a world in which, if we are able to discern God's presence at all, it is through our own faltering attempts at courage and compassion. All right, so before I read the end of this, we know that in the book of Esther, in the story of Purim, God is not mentioned at all, right? We don't hear about God's presence. And so they're saying that our world today is like that. We don't see God's hand right now in what's happening with coronavirus. We don't see what the end is going to be and how things are going to turn out in the end. Just like in the story of Purim, Esther didn't know what was going to be. And that's when Mordecai said, who knows? Who knows if this isn't the reason you became queen, is so that you could save the Jewish people in this situation. Often when we say who knows, it is accompanied by a gesture of resignation, a shrug of the shoulders, an upward glance, as if uncertainty or not knowing relieves us of all responsibility. How can we effectively respond to poverty in developing countries? Who knows? It's too complicated for me to get involved. All too often in our lives, who knows becomes an excuse for inaction, a pretext for paralysis. But in this remarkable exchange between Mordecai and Esther, something quite different happens. Who knows becomes not an excuse, but an invitation. Consider the possibility, says Mordecai, that you are here for a reason, that there is something bigger and more important than your fear, that you have more power than you can imagine. Consider the possibility that it is up to us to act out of love and responsibility for each other in order to make room for God's presence in this world. All right, that was long. What do you guys think of that quote?
That feels like it comes back. I come back to the previous quote or two texts ago about hope versus optimism.
Mm-hmm.
That feels very hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I like that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's more like you can't just sit around waiting, like you have to take action, because otherwise things won't happen. If everyone just sits around and waits, then nothing's going to get done, nothing's going to get better. So you have to take the action.
Great. And that's what I liked about this. The hope is taking action. The who knows part was personal responsibility, right? You could easily look at this and say, this is bigger than any of us. This is overwhelming, right? But it's each of us taking the small actions to help. I saw a post on Facebook recently from somebody in Milwaukee who had been worried about the whole lack of toilet paper. And so he ordered it from, I'm trying to remember where it was. I think it might've been Canada. But in order to get free shipping, he had to order an enormous amount of toilet paper. Like, just, did you see this on Facebook, Jen?
No, but I wrote a whole blog article that's probably going to be published next week on toilet paper.
And so then he put it up on Facebook and he showed the picture of it coming. It must have been like, I don't know, 500 rolls of toilet paper. And he posted it and said, and explained what he had done and said, anybody who needs toilet paper, let me know. I'll drop some off to you, no charge. He said, all I ask is that you do something kind for somebody else. Right?
Oh.
This was a small action and this was not somebody like, it wasn't a rabbi. It wasn't like somebody who was doing this as part of a leadership role. It's not somebody who works professionally in the Jewish community. He saw a need that was going around him and did something about it. And is now reaching out to help other people. Each one of us is helping in different ways. If it's the sewing of the masks, or it's the buying of the toilet paper, or delivering groceries to our neighbor, or there are so many things to do. But who knows? Who knows if that wasn't my responsibility, that wasn't my part of making a difference in this. I don't know, I thought that was interesting. I'm trying to move you guys on the screen.
That happened a lot in our community at the Federation, where a lot of different people have taken on new roles that were like completely different from what their normal responsibilities were.
For sure. That's a really great example. Sorry, I'm trying to get the picture of you guys smaller so then I can, I had it before. There we go. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, this is one of my favorite prayers. And it's you know, the Jewish prayers, are some of them that you find whatever synagogue you go to, the Shema or the Baruch Hu. There's some common prayers you see everywhere. There's some prayers that depending on if it's Orthodox or non-Orthodox, and if it's Ashkenazi or Sephardi, are included or not. This is one that a lot of synagogues don't do, but mine does, and it's one of my favorites. And it's quotes from 3 places in the Bible, and it's done at the very end of the service, like it's the very last thing after Elena. So somebody want to read the English for us? Dustin, you want to read?
Or why not? Be not afraid of sudden terror, neither of the destruction of the wicked when it comes. Take counsel together, and it shall be brought to nothing. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for God is with us. Even to old age, I am the same, and even until my hair is white, I will carry you. I have made, and I will bear. Yes, I will carry and will deliver. So
it's at the very end of the service. I have always found it tremendously helpful, right? Don't be afraid. Bad thing may start happening around you, but God is going to be with us, and God is going to help us. You know, God is with us forever. I don't know. I find it very inspirational. What do you guys think of these quotes?
Because it's like knowing that you're not alone. It's that whole hashtag, we're all in this together.
Yeah. And that God's going to be with us.
Yeah, definitely.
I think, that is my last one, and we're 8:45, so my timing is not too bad. I'm going to put us back big. So we started out at the very beginning asking you to share something that's making you optimistic and hopeful right now. So after we've spent, 45 minutes discussing these quotes and these ideas, do you have any additional new thoughts about optimism and hope confronting what's facing us today?
It definitely makes me go, this was a good start to my day. As far as being home with my 3 kids and homeschooling, it's a good way to kick off the day and have some, hope, I would say, thinking about optimism versus hope, just, hope for the day, hope to, to get through the day with all that I have to do. So I guess I took it very personally.
That's good.
So,
and I think that's also an interesting thing. When I start to think about anything that overwhelms me, whether it's Corona or was cleaning for Passover or anything else, when I think about it in small chunks, when I think about what is my hope for today, what is my optimism for today, how am I going to get through what faces me today, I'm usually pretty good. When I start to think, what is the next 6 months going to be, the next year going to be, how am I going to handle, the next 10 years of my life, I get totally overwhelmed. So this idea of looking at it in chunks and how do I get through this next piece in front of me, and you think about the Akev, right? Like Yaakov, like the heel, and putting down your heel to take the next step, that's really helpful. Other thoughts that come out of the stuff we've discussed today?
It's kind of like, even in the darkest of time, there's always hope. There's always hope. Somewhere in that dark fog, there is a light that's waiting to shine through. And
the light at the end of the tunnel, when God closes a door, God opens a window.
Absolutely.
Right? The silver lining of the cloud. I think all that stuff is very good.
Mm-hmm.
Other thoughts?
I don't know, it kind of reminded me of I always like to say about my time when I was in Israel for the first time, and I went to En Gedi, and you're in the middle of, this desert and next to the Dead Sea where it's all salt and kind of dead. And even in the middle of this, vast death area, there's life. So there's always hope. There's always fresh water, always life.
And we have to seek them out, right? We can, like I was saying before, you can get so hung up on the bad news and the negative stuff. And And it's important to seek out the good things that are happening and pay attention to the good, not just the bad. Any other thoughts? So I'll leave you with one more that I think came out a lot in what we talked about today. Judaism is very much a religion of action more than belief, right? It's about doing. It's not enough just to believe in God. You need to take action. So for example, to believe that tzedakah is important, that it's good to give to other people, but not to give anything is not helpful. You can believe it all you want, but if you don't take the action to actually give to others, then you haven't made a difference. It's the action of giving or helping or doing. And I think this idea that hope is taking action and that we need to take whatever steps each of us can take. And I know all 5 of you, and so I know all of you are really taking lots of action right now. But it's those actions that we take every single day, big and small, that are going to together, right? We keep saying this, we're in this together, that are going to together help our small Jewish community, our city of Milwaukee, our country, our world get through this one step at a time if we all take action and try and help.
Yeah.
So I thank you for taking time out this early in the morning to come together, and I wish all of you a very optimistic and hopeful day as we're moving forward.
Thank you. Could you share with us the next couple Lamed opportunities?
Sure. Actually, the only thing I have on the calendar at the moment is a breakfast and learn about Shavuot. I'm trying to look and see what the date is of it, of the class. It's in May.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. I should know it more off the top of my head. You know what? I will send you guys an email follow-up on it because I'm not seeing it off the top of my head, but we will have a breakfast and learn about Shavuot coming up. And I'm thinking, oh, here we go. May 7th. First thing in the morning like this on May 7th. It's a Thursday. And I was thinking about doing a book club this like spring, summer, if people might be interested in that. I just finished reading, or I'm in the midst of reading this book by Rabbi Jonathan Sacks called A Letter in the Scroll. And it's just, have you read it? It's really great. And it's an explanation of why Judaism is unique among other religions and what compelling the reasons are to be Jewish. So I thought it might be an interesting book club. And then I'm thinking about maybe doing just some more breakfast and learns or lunch and learns during the course of the summer, but I'm just trying to get a feel for if people are going to want that or have time for it. I think some of it depends on what's happening this summer, and if people, if the world opens up again and people can go on vacation and kids are going to camp and whatever, people might be busy. If we're all stuck at home still, then maybe some of this learning might be, helpful.
I vote for yes.
What?
I vote for learning over the summer.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like that
All right.
too.
Yep. Okay. Well, then I will look into some other ones to put together. All right. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you. You too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.